So I know the introduction came, but this topic is where brand meets land. A trademark that one of my good friends came up with years ago about branded real estate. And we're fortunate enough to have Bernardo Fort-Brescia, who's the founding principal of Arquitectonica and one of the top architectural voices behind not only Miami, but many of the world's great real estate projects. And Keith Space, who's a global hospitality and real estate executive, whose career has spanned luxury development, operations, and asset transformation at a very high level. And they have strategic partnerships with the Four Seasons brand. In line with the topic that we're talking about today, when you hear the phrase where brand meets land, Keith, what comes to mind?
Well, I think first and foremost, hospitality, architecture, location, they're no longer individual pillars. It's a multidisciplinary function that has to take place. They're intertwined. And, you know, the brand, you hear it all the time, the brand, it's a brand promise, right? The brand is making the promise. It's the design and the operation that deliver on that promise. So I think when we talk about where brand meets land, the expectation today is not just about location, it's about how that location is going to make you feel, or how that experience within that location is going to make you feel.
For the customer, it's really difficult to understand a building, you know, that you're going to go visit or stay or purchase. And brands have very defined reputations. You really can, you know, if it's a Four Seasons, in your mind, you sort of understand what you're about to get. And so the brand is somebody has done the research for you, so to speak. And this applies not just to hotels, because even in a branded residence, I'm making an investment. It's even bigger than making a trip for a few days. Maybe it doesn't work out. It was just a few days. I didn't risk my capital, so to speak. But the brand is sort of somebody in a quality brand, approve the location, must be supervising that the promise is met to the buyer, that they assume that they're checking on the materials and the quality of construction. They assume they've approved the developer, by the way, because they wouldn't go with anybody. They want to know, is this guy really going to execute? So to some extent, the brand is some kind of a guarantee of sorts in all these different measures. And so as an architect, we like it because it means that our design is going to be faithfully followed. And we also like it because we have a very defined design target. I mean, I know what that brand expects. So I'm not just guessing here. You know, I know what direction to go. So there's, to us in our practice, that's a big part of what the brand delivers.
And so when the brand, you're giving great examples here, but in just normal real estate development process, architects tend to get involved early, Bernardo. So when a brand comes to you, is that normally how it works? A brand comes, a real estate developer comes, just walk the audience through how does a brand come to life in the role that you play in the process?
Well, at this point, I sort of know the brands, you know, so, because I worked with them before, but let's say that first time, right? I'm going to work with a brand. We're going to do our own research. We may actually even go and stay in one of their hotels if it was a hotel brand. We may want to visit some of their properties, and we have our own sort of interrogation. We have our list of questions, you know, so that we're not wandering around designing aimlessly. and just try something and see what they say. We generally would be already at a first meeting quite informed about what would be the expectation of that brand. And still, I think the brand expects us to give it a little extra twist and maybe a little bit of a newness and improvement beyond what they have. But improvement is not easy, but we try.
And Keith, with Four Seasons as one of your, I don't want to use the term exclusive and misrepresent, but your long-standing partner that has, their own standards, how do you as a real estate organization work with a brand to either bring to them what they're looking for, or vice versa, they come to you and say, this is how we could do business together?
Actually, it's both at this point, where any brand, Bernardo has a brand. He's got a following. He's got a reputation, and so people will go to Arquitectonica because they put out a quality product in a timely fashion that to his point is unique and interesting every time. And brands will do the same in that they want a certain standard, but they don't necessarily want repetition. So they want to go to, in our case, a developer and say, here's a location that really requires some thought and some interesting and a little bit of maybe daring that we believe your organization has the ability to overcome. And then we will partner with a group like Arquitectonica then it becomes synergistic, where the brand is contributing, the design is contributing, and the approach on how to sort of monetize that real estate creates a unique end result.
What he's described is a brand that is a little bit more sort of always moving forward to the next level, right? The next step. There are actually, by the way, some brands that are very rigid, that are static, so to speak. Your brand is a little bit more dynamic, right? It's
True.
always
True.
what's next, what's new. They're always looking, we love that. But sometimes we're stifled a little bit by some brands that are a little bit too settled.
Yes.
And too comfortable.
Yes.
With what they have.
Yes.
And we have to push a little bit to make them think that maybe there's the next generation of brand definition, right?
Yes, for sure.
And Bernardo, when a brand or a real estate group comes to you and they're contemplating a project, let's just say in a city like Miami, which has had many, many instances of brands building and layering themselves into real estate, what do you think are the components to that thought process as to why a Baccarat or an Aston Martin on, the car side, automotive, what is their thought process generally behind the scenes as to why they want to be in a place like Miami, just to use that as a city of an example?
Well, I sometimes wonder who is the one who wants. Is the brand who wants it, or is the developer who is attracted because of his personal interest to a certain brand? Originally, I designed hotels, and I designed a condominium, right? Separate. Then suddenly we were putting residential on top of hotel or vice versa in one building, or next, or side by side as one project. That helped sell the units because the perception is that there is service, some hospitality ambiance to a residential building. And eventually there are branded residences that use the name of a hotel without a hotel. But even then, the customer thinks that there's a concierge, that there's service, that the hotel brand implies that I have a more serviced apartment than just arriving with my key and going into my apartment. When you say that there's some of that?
No question that the hotel brands elicit some level of hospitality besides just being in a plain building, to your point, and that there's a higher level of service. And I think the intent is to actually deliver that higher level of service, and hopefully it preserves and or increases the value of the residential project instead of it just being an unbranded building.
Well, there's a time when there are too many. The market is already taken by a hotel brand, or somebody doesn't want the cost of operating a hotel-style condo, and they go to other brands that are non-hospitality. That has been happening because maybe the market is already tapped. There's a radius restriction. So some brands are non-hotel occasionally, and they imply something else. Like I did a Fendi building near your Four Seasons.
In Surfside, yeah.
And but it implies style, good taste, right? Maybe not service, but something else.
Which leads to your question about the non-hospitality brands like a Fendi or an Aston Martin. It promises a different, ethos.
To that point, now that you've seen many of these brands launch and deliver buildings in the market, is there even a new thought process in the last 5 or 10 years on what to expect from a branded piece of real estate? If Aston Martin opens their first tower, which may have been the first time they ever did that, all of a sudden now the next car brand, are they falling behind and having to live up to something that may either be feasible or not feasible?
Well, actually, people in the business like we are not just designing, like doing we design the layout, we design first, in a residential building, then we give it some flair. But to do all this, we generally consult with the sales groups, the brokers. We want to make sure that what we are doing is friendly to the market, right?
Exactly.
And generally, I never have a question about a hotel brand because it's pretty obvious
Yes.
what it delivers. And occasionally, on the fashion side, there could be a brand like Fendi who means elegance, but there could be a brand that maybe has ventured into a little bit too much of a hip product and it's not really.
Well, yeah, I think you're going to see Restoration Hardware leaving home goods, going into hotels, going into residential buildings. What is that brand promise, and how is it going to make the shift? And Jonathan, to further your question about non-hospitality brands, yes, Aston Martin has a building, Mercedes has a building, every luxury, Porsche has a building. Every luxury brand is going to look to proliferate their brand promise into real estate, and you're going to see it expand with time.
I'm only going to tell you what I've heard because it's not necessarily my opinion, okay? And I want to sound like I'm promoting this idea. However, when our team does these interviews, so to speak, to brokers and sales teams, I was shocked. I heard, for example, that car brand is generally successful. Get a hold of this. If the male is making the decision. Have you heard that such a thing?
I have not, but that makes perfect sense.
What? I said, oh, yeah.
That makes perfect
it is,
sense.
No, like some women like cars. No, but
they're talking about a majority of the time. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I was surprised that apparently that is a factor. And it's...
Is it the same with fashion brands on the flip side?
For example, not really.
Interesting.
With a fashion brand, less so. Because maybe fashion is more
Universal?
universal. I don't know.
Maybe.
But if the brand is a little bit like too strange, potentially.
Yes.
I don't want to mention names.
No,
but there's
but they exist.
some that do
Yeah,
some
that
work
are a
that
little
is
bit out there.
fashion that is out there,
Yeah.
and that also could limit.
Yes.
You know, a brand that is more universal appeal, then is okay. But if a brand has a luxury brand has expanded into doing blue jeans, suddenly it's no longer luxury. You know?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it is-
And I
so
also
the price point has to be. It all depends on what the price point is.
But I also think you're talking, Jonathan, major cities, right? I don't think anything that we're talking about today translates to Peoria, right? It's certainly primary. Maybe there's some secondary cities that this flows through on the branded real estate, whether it's hotel, whether it's residential, office. I don't think it makes it to a tertiary city
Totally.
to where it adds value.
And generally adds value when there are newcomers into that city.
Yes.
Or there's visitors who don't know which block is right. I could be buying, you know, in real estate, you can be one block wrong. They
Exactly.
assume the brand has approved
Yes.
the location.
Yes.
Dubai.
Yes.
Who the hell knows where I'm buying something? Or
Exactly.
Miami. I'm coming in from another place in the world, South America or Europe or New York.
Yep.
You know, do I really know if I'm in the right
Yeah,
location?
and so I think just sort of bringing it all back to where brand meets land, I think as we become more of a global society, the brand in these big cities really help someone navigate their search, and it creates a level of confidence that didn't exist a decade ago.
Or now there are certain locations that are themselves a brand and you don't need it. Park Avenue.
Exactly.
I mean, why do I need a brand? The brand
Exactly.
is Park Avenue.
Yes. Yes.
And by the way, Paris is a brand.
yes.
There's hardly any branded buildings in Paris. I'm doing the first one right now. But it's because maybe they're seeking American
Buyers.
or overseas buyers. But even then, because in
That's a great
Paris
point.
is Paris, excuse
Yes.
me. That's a brand.
Agreed.
So, but it's Dubai or Miami or certain cities,
City. Yeah, sure.
you know, where that the brand does help.
Yes.
But I do tell you, there's some places, especially that are smaller cities, that didn't used to need a brand, but call it Naples, Florida. People from out of town,
Yeah.
or who want service, because I don't think that age group is interested in a fashion brand.
Agreed.
They're interested in a hotel brand because they want the hospitality
Component.
service.
Yes.
Don't you think?
Yes.
And,
yes.
and that's an example of not a global hub, but where the brand really works.
Correct.
Since
Like-
and I'm sorry to interrupt, but since we're in Florida and we're speaking about brands and cities, I'm a New Yorker, so if I was new to Florida and I want to move down here, what are the nuances from a city branding standpoint between Miami and West Palm Beach, since we're sitting here today?
Well, I mean, West Palm Beach, Miami and West Palm Beach both, they're on fire, right? There's really a tremendous amount of influx. Obviously, in Miami, we had the whole Citadel move, which then just created this whole transformation of Wall Street firms. Now there's a huge tech shift from the California shift. That's now getting pushed up to West Palm Beach. You're at a real estate in Palm Beach. It's incredibly attractive real estate. West Palm Beach is exploding. You have a project 5 blocks from here, maybe less, that is going to be office.
Yes.
And it's new construction. It's all ground up.
And it's leasing very well.
And it's not 5 years from now, it's next year. It's really an incredible migration coming into Florida as a whole, but really places like Miami and Palm Beach are just overwhelming.
Well, the reality is that you cannot build in Palm Beach Island. Okay. So we have several projects here on the waterfront, like Fort Flagler or Olara or others, along
Yes.
that West Palm Beach Riviera, I would call it.
Yes.
It's like La Croisette in Cannes. It's right there. And that's a new frontier of luxury living, high
Yes.
rise. And in the end, what is high rise luxury living? Well, I'm moving generally from a house where I had a backyard. And now suddenly my backyard is the view. And if you look at West Palm Beach, because Palm Beach is all low, you're looking over it, which is beautiful to see land and water together, better than just water, frankly.
Yes.
It's like in the French Riviera, you see land and water.
But then
it's
you
much
have
nicer.
all of the amenities of Palm Beach, West Palm Beach. Then you have access
there.
to the intercoastal in your
You
backyard.
can have a boat. You can cross
Yes.
the bridge and you're in Worth Avenue. You can go inland and you're in City Place. I
Yes.
mean, it's like a real urban life.
Yes.
I mean, that's really what West Palm Beach is. It just offers the full spectrum of living experience. I mean, it's unique. And now that there's offices, it's great.
Yes.
And probably the biggest factor that is being solved, because Steve is building, is schools. For the young executive to
Yes.
move, you need schools.
Agreed.
And Miami has that advantage. There are famous
Correct.
schools like Ransom Everglades,
Yes.
Carrollton, these and
Yes.
that. You know, they're
Yeah.
feeders to Ivy League schools. Amazing. And that's coming here. And
Well, we need it because the population that used to come here was retired. Now you have all of these young professionals
Correct.
with young families.
exactly. And the education part is a big
Component.
component.
Decision
of-
factor.
Oh, yeah. It is a very big decision factor.
Yes.
And
Maybe
so
there's
soon-
branded schools.
soon this will, yep, but there is such a thing as a branded
in
school.
New York, we did a deal with a school called the Alpha School, which is the AI school from Texas. So they're trying to own the AI category for education.
There you go.
Um,
Next.
In terms of social media and content creation and its impact on building brands today, how do you think about that as a real estate developer, your Four Seasons? And I'll just frame it one other way. Is it more valuable for the brand to put out their own content? Is it more valuable to get the organic, authentic mentions that are happening? Where do you guys kind of think about that?
That's really not a great question for me because I don't represent the brand of Four Seasons. They're a strategic partner of ours. So I couldn't give you the exact thought process behind Four Seasons other than it's a global luxury brand. It has 60 years of history that it has to protect, and it's incredibly selective over who it partners with, where and how it communicates, down to the word choice. So for us as a developer, we love that because they are so focused on the absolute highest end of the market. We know that that's where we want to be, and that makes them such a great partner for us. And then we don't need to worry about finding real estate in a burgeoning market somewhere or on an odd street corner because that doesn't work for a Four Seasons customer. They are looking for to what Bernardo talked about. Four Seasons is incredibly critical about not just who they partner with, what's the location, what's the access, where what's the size, how are you embracing the future? There are so many aspects that are a requirement beyond just the stuff Bernardo has to deal with. Our minimum finished ceiling height is 11 feet, or our minimum hotel size is 500 square feet per
Down
room.
to the room width.
Yeah, exactly. So there's all of these just architectural requirements, but beyond that, they look for very specific aspects. And so when you talk about social media, it's really hard for me to speak because we're not allowed.
I'm gonna flip it, and Bernardo, if you want to jump in, but talk to me then about heritage and history and how you think about that, whether if it's a redevelopment, right, and how you kind of research it and think about that towards the brand, the future brand, or just the history of a city, a neighborhood, and how that factors into your design and development.
Where we work in the world, we do research about the architectural culture of a place, and that includes lifestyle, how people experience spaces or how they use the spaces. I mean, there's nuances down to the use of a tub or not, and how. You know, the Japanese think that the tub is for soaking and relaxing, and they can understand you wash yourself first. They don't understand how Westerners take a bath in dirty water, for example. You know? Or the Chinese kitchen has that because of the wok. You know, you have a rear kitchen, and then for symbolism of your westernized, you have a show kitchen in the front. I mean, to every place, we analyze lifestyle and the specifics, and you analyze also how people experience place, because there are many locations in America where uses are very separated. Residential neighborhood, you know, commercial neighborhood. Other places in the world, like in Europe, you have commercial in the ground floor, residential on top, you know, like they're unrelated. I mean, there's a integrated city life, you know, so in every case, we need to study the place. I've built in 50 countries, and it is in every place we visit, we study the history, we study the way people live, and then you also study expectations. You have to study what people are wanting to be, not what they were, you know, and so you got to look at the reason for moving to a new building. Maybe it is because it's precisely has something new to offer. So you got to bridge tradition and forward thinking at once. You know, it's
and this term placemaking, right? Ultimately, how do you think about placemaking vis-a-vis brand, right? Is placemaking, is your ultimate goal to create a brand, establish a brand for a single project, a neighborhood?
Well, look, I think that's less the responsibility of the brand and more the responsibility of the developer and the design team. The again, as I said earlier, the brand is the promise to a certain standard. The word I've used before is people look for a certain amount of certainty, and brands provide that certainty. But when you create a sense of place, that really becomes a much bigger component or responsibility of both the developer and the design team. Do you maximize your FAR because you need to monetize it because you overpaid for the land? Or do you leave yourself room for the creatives to really create something unique and something special, to identify with its surroundings, to absorb its history, to really, particularly when you talk about, you know, historic restoration. We didn't always think in the efficiency. Once upon a time, things didn't make sense that way. You know, luxury hotels used to have 5-foot corridors because everyone came with, you know, 12 pieces of luggage, and you needed to get 2 and 3 bell carts past one another. Today, everyone's got a roller bag. It's a 2.7 length of stay. It's a very different travel community. You don't need 5-foot corridors. But if you go in and you restore the plaza, you're not shrinking that corridor. So the sense of place really needs to be created by the design team and the developer.
There are locations in the world where it's very likely that the design will be within an existing historic building, like Milano or Paris. It's very likely, and and you still want to create a contemporary comfort within a non-contemporary set of walls. And
Very true.
it is a real struggle. Actually, the architect is more creative with existing buildings has to be with a brand new one, because you got to figure out how to navigate the facts. You know, it's and some of these buildings have, frankly, pretty nice details that you sort of want to preserve because they're sort of part of the personality of the experience in that
you
building.
can't replicate them.
Yeah.
The tradesmen don't exist anymore.
Totally. There's no artisans anymore.
Yeah.
So if I find a building that has those features, generally I'll figure out a way to incorporate them into what is essentially contemporary comfort. And you got to deal with that too.
Yes.
And Bernardo, when you've built buildings, designed buildings, and you have and your team has an original vision, are there times when you'll go back and visit that property and see its sense of place within wherever that building was built or redeveloped? Do you, as a leader of your org and a creative and a entrepreneur, like to see a project after it's been built?
Well, I usually stay in a project that I built, if anything, to learn about myself, you know, and if I messed up on something. So don't do it twice.
Or
But-
if you did a great job.
Or
right?
if I
And
did a
you're
great
like,
job,
wow, this is amazing.
It feels really good that it's something that
Many
worked
years
out
later.
really nice. Absolutely. I generally like to stay in buildings I've done, but frankly, I like to stay in buildings others have done because also there's always something to learn, you know?
And we
out
know
there.
how you feel about the Four Seasons in Palm Beach.
Let's
So.
not talk about it.
This conference is really about Tomorrow.City, and AI is a topic that we were talking about before. To what extent do you think the kind of rise of AI has on physical places? Do you feel that it's even more important over the coming years that the physical place will have a more important role for humans?
You want to take that? You want me to take it?
Well, we probably both have something to say about the subject. Well, in my field, AI is very useful as long as the data already exists. So we can do analysis of a site, the zoning, frankly, even structural questions and technical questions. It still doesn't do the unexpected, because if there's no historical basis, it's very difficult to come up with something that doesn't exist yet. So the unexpected is what it can't do. But anything that is there's data, it can, and it accelerates the process, the early process, so we are not wasting our time designing on incorrect information. But beyond that, we still have to be the ones who come up with the unexpected, and that's. But that means I get to that stage sooner, rather than later, because I already know
Yes.
what I have as a foundation
Yes.
from which I can get creative.
And what do you think is going to Keith? This is to you. What do you think is going to matter most in making a physical place resonate over the next decade?
I'm going to come back to I think particularly in the age of AI, the reaction to a building, whether it's a hotel, apartment building, an office tower, a shopping mall. I think the ability to elicit a visceral reaction is going to become essential. We are going to be spoiled by technology and the ability to manipulate and create things that make no sense in the physical world. Making sense of something in the physical world, but then being able to elicit a visceral response, I think is going to become the absolute minimum standard going forward.
You know, I'm sure he goes to a site with all the information about a location to analyze it, but he may go visit the site and he may feel, it just doesn't feel right, right? I mean, how do you define it doesn't feel right? AI can't do that.
No.
Feel right. It can give you all the rest.
Correct.
How tall the building can be,
Yes.
give you everything, but
Yes.
the human
Yeah.
touch of
that-
how does it feel? How do you ask AI how does it feel?
Agreed.
It's
You
pretty
can't.
difficult, I went to visit a site in London, and I arrived early because you never know the traffic, and I wanted to be there on time. And in England, you gotta be punctual. And when I arrived, getting from the site, there was the loading area for some store, Selfridges or something. It was in Soho, and I arrived at the exact time that the trucks were taking out the trash. You can see, and we're making all this noise. It was like the loudest, And by the time my client arrived, that was over. But I was there at that exact bad luck for the seller, at that moment. And I told the client, it all looks good here, but check that. You don't understand. This was a major disruption.
Sure.
If I had my room overlooking or this, it would be
Problematic.
problematic. Wouldn't
Yes.
you say for
Oh,
you as
yes.
a hotel?
Yes, for sure.
It's
And you deal with that every day. And AI can't tell you about that.
AI can't open the window yet,
That's right.
right?
no,
Not
no.
yet. Not yet.
I
Give
had the
it 5
same
minutes.
situation. I mean, I designed these luxury condos, and we do these amazing bathrooms and this and that, and the closets. But I did 2 towers in Milano for Heinz, the big developer. These are luxury towers, and I went to visit all kinds of buildings in Italy and talk to every Italian. Well, for the Italian, they don't like or believe in air conditioning. And they want every room, I'm talking kitchen, bathroom, everything with natural light and natural ventilation. Now, this is luxury. So that dressing room had to have light because the Italian wants to see the clothes they're
In
wearing.
natural light.
In the
Yep.
natural in light.
Yep.
God, so I had to design a building with a form that much more perimeter.
Sure.
And
Like a
that-
clover leaf.
You wouldn't believe, while in the United States,
I can't
perfectly
imagine what
acceptable.
it cost. I can't imagine what it cost.
It's sold for a very nice price.
I bet. It had to.
No, but in the hotel business,
Yes.
if the room is perfect,
Yes.
people will pay the price or
Yes.
will not be feeling sorry or angry
Correct.
how expensive the room was.
Yes.
So the same thing applies if you hit it right for that customer.
Yeah.
The price is not an objection
Agreed.
because I got something for it.
Yes.
It's not that it came
And that's
with-
where the brand promise comes back
correct.
on this branded, brand meets land.
Yes. This will be V1 of where brand meets land. It's always changing. But I think we're going to wrap up here. So thank you both
Okay.
for making the time and commuting up from Miami to the next great city in Florida. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.